Oh, we're back. Sorry about that. So we're back here with Theresa Pena from DPS Foods, and she's going to show us how to make some French toast.
So last time I got to talk to you all about the Food Nutrition Services breakfast and lunch program. And so today I wanted to share one of the items that we do almost all from scratch. It's baked French toast. And what's really great about this is that when we serve hot meals in our schools, particularly breakfast, it's such a great way to start the day. So I have the recipe here today. We actually start with baking our own bread. So in our bread, we use yeast, salt, dry milk, flour, water, and a little bit of honey, so you'll find that it's really tasty. And our students love all of our made from scratch bread products. We do rolls. Tomorrow we're going to have meatloaf and a biscuit. But for the baked French toast, we start with a loaf of bread that's with all those ingredients I just shared, and then we add some other ingredients to it. So the other thing I think I shared last time is that every single new employee that starts with us actually goes through a scratch cooking class. So just last week, we started the 3-week programming. So we offer it 3 times during the course of the year. They learn how to do baking, they learn how to do food prep, safety handling, vegetable for our fresh fruit and produce bars, meat handling. So all the tips that really make our scratch cooking something that's really robust. And there was just a new article that came out in the Atlantic, and there's actually a link that talks about nutritious school meals and successful academic achievement. So we know, as we talked about last time, that it's not just good and healthy and tasty for kids, but it actually has a really important link. So back to the baked French toast. We bake our bread. We then slice it and lay it flat in a pan. And then we melt butter. So we have some butter here. We have cinnamon and brown sugar. And the great thing about the butter, cinnamon, brown sugar is when you bake that on top of the bread, it creates a natural syrup. So this is all, again, meeting the USDA nutritional guidelines. This is a favorite for our students because it's a little bit sweeter than some of our items. And so that's a real positive. So for the covering on top of the bread, so we would bake the bread the day before. That morning, we would get to our kitchens. We would lay it out in our pan. We would put the toppings on it: butter, cinnamon, brown sugar, eggs, and milk, and then we bake it. So we actually have recipes for all of our schools, and it's a standard recipe. You'd be a little bit surprised how the 4 of us might follow a recipe and we might have a different outcome, not as good as this baked French toast looks here. So that's one of the challenges, is kind of the quality and consistency, because we really want every child to not just have really good food, but for it to look good. Because we know one of the first things students do when they walk through the cafeteria is they look at the appearance of the food and they eat with their eyes. So if they see something that looks really great and lovely like this, they're a lot more likely to try it, even if they haven't had it before. So the baked French toast is a new item for us on the breakfast program this year. We like to try different recipes. We'll do sampling with students. We'll do surveys with students. We solicit recipes from our families and students. Still haven't gotten one, hoping that maybe somebody in the audience will send us one. But we really are trying to make sure that there's a lot of variety and a lot of choice, and that it connects with the nutritional. So we have several registered dietitians on our staff. So they will look at the recipes and make sure that they meet the USDA nutritional guidelines. And then we serve it for breakfast. On our breakfast menu, it alternates. For the breakfast that's served in the cafeteria, that menu is on a 4-week cycle. So you might see different choices every day of the month. Same thing just like for our school lunches. If we do breakfast in the classroom, that's a different menu cycle. There's less scratch-cooked items because we're serving breakfast in our classrooms. And the really great thing about doing breakfast in the classroom is that all students have the chance to eat. They don't have to get there before the tardy bell. They actually eat as part of the ritual and routine during the school day. So after the tardy bell rings, we're serving breakfast in many of our classrooms. Of the 135 schools in DPS, we have over 200, but there's 135 schools in DPS that do what we call breakfast after the bell. So it's a Colorado law that said schools that have 70% free and reduced lunch students or higher have to make a breakfast delivery available after the bell. The breakfast in the classroom is honestly one of my favorites because all students have the opportunity to eat. The downside is we don't get as much scratch cooking and there's not as much variety, but it's still very healthy. It's a great way to start the day. You all are teachers. You know that if a child is coming to school and hasn't had a really good nutritional breakfast, they're not going to be very kind of sit and get and do the learning and I just watch your homework problems and those are challenging. And if students are putting bad food in their bodies, and certainly I'm sure many of you have seen some of the things that our students eat. They like hot Cheetos, they like those Monster drinks. Those aren't the best things to put in your body and then go to a chemistry class or you're in your second grade science class. So this is really important to have the kind of healthy and nutritious foods that we have.
Yeah, that is so true. I was just going to say, my school is one of the schools that has breakfast after the bell. So we do it at like 9 o'clock. There's a break. All the students get to come out and eat. And it's really, really cool because it's sort of a social moment. And a bunch of the students, like if they don't get food early in the day, that's the main thing that they're thinking about. And classes get sidetracked in anything we're trying to do because there will literally be some of our students that will run around the school looking for food, asking teachers for food. And I've seen that really mitigated by the breakfast in school program. It's been great.
Not to mention the risk of hanger.
Right.
If you don't eat,
you
you
don't
don't
want
want to
any
be.
hangry students,
Don't
right?
need any hangry students.
I want happy students, not
That's
hangry
right.
students.
So, so we're really motivated to continue to work with our schools. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Every school has different needs for the breakfast delivery. But where we get to make breakfast, whether it's serving it in the cafeteria, in the classroom, we're serving large numbers of students. So, for example, this recipe that I'm kind of following today, we just made a pan with 12. But for most of our schools, we'd be making several pans, and it's 96 servings. So if you just think about that, we do 40,000 breakfast meals every day in DPS. So when we're cooking from scratch, we're making several pans like this to ensure that our students have the options and the choices that we publish on our menu. And that's something that we take very seriously. We have a published menu for both breakfast and lunch. We also have a breakfast in the classroom menu. So families and students could take a look at it and they get to decide, oh, I like these particular items, or I don't particularly care for that meal. But really, I think kind of breaking bread, pun intended, is a real opportunity when particularly to start your day in school. It really makes a big difference, I think, to have that kind of social opportunity to get good nutrition and to do this as part of whether you're doing math minutes or whether you're doing reading or whether you're doing a writing assignment. We have had some of our secondary schools who do breakfast in the classroom. But I would say it's more of an elementary opportunity. So at the high school level, the secondary level, both middle and high school, we're always looking for different options because we know that our secondary students like choice. They like hot. We're looking for more protein opportunities. This has a little bit of protein in it because it has the eggs in it. But it's actually, protein is not a requirement for the USDA. It's, there's not even a sugar limitation, although we as a school district have decided to limit the amount of sugar that we have in our individual items to to less than 10 grams, quite honestly, per single item. So in the morning, a student would take a main entree. They would have the option of taking milk, and in the morning we only serve 1% milk or non-fat milk, white milk. At lunch, students have the opportunity to have flavored skim chocolate milk or flavored strawberry flavored skim milk. And so I think chocolate milk is probably our most popular item at lunch. We don't make those flavored milks available in the morning. But in the morning, they would take an entree. They would have the choice of milk. We always serve a piece of fruit, and we also make a juice box available. So that's a USDA requirement that we have to have a cup of fruit available. The way we do it to balance our budget and to make things interesting for our students is to serve a juice box and fruit. We're looking at that. We've gotten lots of feedback from both our students and parents that sometimes the juice box, well, it's no added sugar. They would rather have just a fresh piece of fruit for our students. And so we're mindful of the amount of sugar, particularly in the morning to start the day off. And we've kind of made the trade-off that healthy, nutritious calories in the body actually address the hangriness, or if students haven't had a good meal, then they're not really sitting and paying attention to their teachers. So all those things kind of go into what we're doing. But I would say, we talked last time about kind of food baked with love. I think when you look at something like this, it looks like something that a parent might make at home, a guardian might make for our students. And we're really trying to partner with our parents because we know that the morning rush could be hectic and not everybody has a chance to have hot, warm, good nutritious items. And honestly, for me, when I was raising my children, it was hard to kind of be innovative and keep thinking of new things to serve to my kids. And so like Cheerios in a bowl was always easy to put in front of them, or an egg. They got tired of that. So I think it's really nice to be able to partner with our parents and say, we have lots of choices. They're healthy, good, and nutritious. They're made with love, just like you are doing in your home. We try and do our best to be an extension of the kitchens that our kids come from.
That's really great.
Yeah.
You know, I just wanted to ask that. I think it's so cool that there's no, well, it's not a good thing that there's no sugar limitation on the national level, but I love that DPS has instituted that. Will we institute anything else like protein requirements or certain kinds of fat requirements going forward? Do you know anything about that?
So the federal requirements are limit sodium, they limit fat. So there's limitations on saturated fat, trans fat. I think trans fat is 0 grams right now.
Oh, that's good.
There's limitations. We have whole grain requirements. So the bread that we're making is actually made with whole grain flour, not white flour. So it's a better nutrient for our students. No sugar requirements, no protein requirements. And protein costs a little bit more, and so as we're thinking of our grocery list as well as our grocery budget, we're pretty mindful, quite honestly, of trying to get more protein out there. The USDA will basically give us requirements about how many carbs, how many calories, and it's by elementary, middle, and high school. I was meeting with a group of parents last night, and one of their questions was, well, you know, the portions seem rather small, and if you have a young lady or a young man who are in high school, they're growing, they're playing a sport, the serving sizes that we have don't feel like it's enough. So we're working with our after-school clubs and athletics to determine, like, could we provide a sack lunch that has some healthy options for them with maybe some protein, maybe some good carbs, you know, milk, that's always a good thing to have for athletes. So kind of that's where we are with the requirements. I think DPS uses the USDA requirements as the floor, not the ceiling, and so like we start with those and try and improve upon those. We have 3 registered dietitians on staff, and so they're always looking at different things and taking in feedback from our parents and students and staff. At the end of the day, my favorite thing to tell everybody is the best meal we could provide to students is one that kids will eat. So that's always a challenge.
So can we see how you make it? Is it hard to make, or is it pretty straightforward?
So the bread, I would say, you know, we kind of have that done because we do that in advance. And so we have here the butter that we would start off with. So we would melt this butter in a pan. And once that's melted, we would combine sugar. We have brown sugar here. Sometimes we use honey or applesauce in place of sugar. For this particular recipe, we're using brown sugar, cinnamon, so trying to use spices that don't add sodium, that don't add more sugar, but like additional extra opportunity to make it tasty and interesting. So we add some brown sugar. We have some milk. So I'm going to use our 1% milk here. And then we have an egg.
Do you mind if we pull this over just so we can get in the camera a little bit?
Oh, you're fine.
Okay,
Go
I'm
ahead.
a little bit worried here.
I trust you.
And so we have all the food safety procedures. All of our people go through that training. I'm actually in a violation right now because I don't have my hair pulled back. I don't have a cap on. I am wearing gloves. So, you know, we are mindful of all of those things to ensure that the food our kids eat is not just tasty and nutritious, but is also...
And they don't find your hair.
Exactly. We don't want them to find the hair. So
And I saw you crack the egg on the table. I know that's a...
yeah, that would not be legal.
No, actually,
yeah.
I've heard that's safer than they have people that crack it on the side of the bowl. Apparently, that's bad.
Why is that
Because
bad?
salmonella can exist on the outside of the egg.
Oh, interesting.
You can actually put salmonella in contact with the bowl. So professional chefs crack it on the table or the counter and then flip it in. I was told that by a friend of mine that just went through.
I'm going to ask our food safety
Yeah, see what they
people
do.
that.
See what they do.
Yeah.
So we kind of sprinkle this all together, mix it all up, and then we would have, I have a finished pan here, but we would have our pan, we would lay out our slices of bread, and then we would just layer it. So it's not just one layer, it's actually, I think it calls for 3 layers that we would put on it.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
And
so there are
then-
3 layers of bread for
Yes.
each.
And
Yes.
you put the butter, egg, milk mixture on each
Exactly,
layer.
that's right. And so
Cool.
then we would put that up there. And then at the very end, we would sprinkle a little bit more butter and the brown sugar on top to give it a nice kind of crispy, crumbly topping on it. And then we bake it. We bake it for 30 minutes. So this is something that we can do in the morning, particularly for our elementary and middle schools because they have a little bit later start. The high schools, depending on when usually our high schools start around 7:30. So we could do this in our high schools. And we have a standard menu. So in the past, we've had different menus for elementary, middle, and high school. This year, we went to a single menu just to make it easier for families. And again, we're always looking at how our decisions affect consumption because we want to feed all of our students in DPS. So if we make a change and then we see our participation rates drop, we go back and reevaluate that.
So this looks like a really easy recipe that people can make at home.
Yes.
I just want to say thanks again for coming on the show again and showing us a little bit about what
Yeah, this was really cool. Thank you,
they
Teresa.
do
really
at
does look
DPS
delicious.
Foods. So
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you
So-
so much.
we're going to go back to commercial and we'll come back and answer some more of your homework questions.